Today, we are taking a journey into the most complicated, most fascinating thing in the entire known universe. And it's right between your ears. We're going to uncover the secret life of your brain. So let me just start with a simple question for you. Think about those moments you're just staring out the window, maybe zoning out on your commute or daydreaming. What do you think your brain is actually doing in those moments? Is it taking a break, powering down for a bit? Well, get this. The truth is the complete opposite. Far from taking a nap, when your mind is at rest, it is one of the busiest, most active places you can possibly imagine. Okay, so let's dive right into this because we have to start by busting a huge misconception. I like to call it the myth of the idle mind. We all just kind of assume that when we're resting, our brain is resting too. But neuroscientists have found out that's not even close to being true. See, they've found something they call a default state, and you can kind of think of it like your brain's screensaver. But instead of, flying toasters, it's this baseline condition of shockingly high activity that's just humming along in the background anytime you're not zeroed in on a specific task. And here's where it gets really weird and kind of backwards from what you'd expect. The second you stop focusing on something out in the world, like say this explainer, the parts of your brain that handle attention actually get quieter. And in their place, this other network just roars to life, becoming one of the most energy-hungry systems in your entire body. So this raises a pretty wild question, doesn't it? If our brain is doing all of this incredible work in the background, totally separate from what we're consciously paying attention to, how much can we really trust our own experience of the world? I mean, what happens when those lines of communication get a little crossed? To figure that out, we've got to look at some really strange clinical cases. These little glitches in the system that actually reveal a ton about how the whole thing is supposed to work. These are the ghosts in the machine. Our first clue comes from this absolutely bizarre condition called blindsight. It happens to people who've had damage to their primary visual cortex. That's the first stop in the brain for information coming from your eyes. So a patient will tell you, with total conviction, I am blind in this part of my vision. I see nothing. But then, if a scientist shows them a line in that blind spot and says, just guess, is it horizontal or vertical? They guess correctly way, way more often than they should by chance. It's like some part of their brain can see, even when the them part, their conscious mind, is completely in the dark. Okay, if you thought that was weird, our second clue is even stranger. It comes from what are known as split brain patients. These are people who, to treat really severe epilepsy, had the connection between the left and right halves of their brain surgically cut. Now, this is where we see the brain's inner storyteller at work. You can flash a command like walk just to the patient's right hemisphere, the one that controls movement, and sure enough, the person gets up and starts to walk. But the left hemisphere, which handles language, it never saw the command. So when you ask the patient, hey, why are you getting up? The left brain, needing a reason for the body's actions, just invents one on the spot. Oh, I was tired of sitting. It makes up a totally plausible story, completely unaware of the real reason. Okay, so let's connect these dots for a second. If our brains can see things we aren't aware of, and they can invent stories to explain actions they don't understand, then what on earth is that super active default network doing all that time when we're just daydreaming? Well, it's time to meet the culprit. Let's pull back the curtain on the brain's secret network. It's officially known as the default mode network, or DMN for short. And yep, this is that collection of brain areas we were just talking about. The one that lights up like a Christmas tree the exact moment you stop paying attention to the outside world and just let your mind wander. So it's helpful to think of the brain as having two main modes that basically work against each other, like a seesaw. First, you've got the focus task mode. When you're concentrating on something specific, your attentional network is switched on, and the default mode network goes quiet. But the second you lose that focus, click. It's like a switch gets flipped. The attentional network powers down, and instantly that default mode network fires right up. They are perfectly anti-correlated. When one is on, the other is off, and vice versa. So the big question is, what is this network doing? Well, it's basically running your own personal simulator. This is where you daydream. It's constantly pulling up memories from your past, running simulations about the future, thinking about other people and how you relate to them. And maybe most importantly, this is the network that's constructing and maintaining your very sense of who you are. But if so much of our mental life, our past, our future, our very identity is being processed by this unconscious background network, well, that leads us to a very deep and, frankly, kind of unsettling question about our own actions. Back in the 1980s, a scientist named Benjamin Libet conducted a now legendary experiment. He just wanted to time the sequence of events in the brain when a person makes a simple, free choice, like deciding when to flick their wrist. The results were not what anybody expected. So here's the timeline he discovered. About 200 milliseconds after a person feels the conscious urge to move, the action happens. No big surprise there. But here's the shocker. The unconscious brain activity that starts the action, a signal they call the readiness potential, it begins a full 300 milliseconds before the person even feels the conscious urge to act. Let that sink in. Your brain starts the process of moving before you are even aware you've made a decision. The implication is absolutely staggering. It suggests that our feeling of conscious will, that feeling of, I decided to do that, it might just be an afterthought. The decision is made unconsciously by the brain first, and our conscious mind just gets notified about it after the fact. I mean, think back to that split brain patient. Their left brain just invented a story to explain why the body started walking. So, could our sense of free will be this same kind of thing? A really convincing story our conscious mind creates to explain an action that was already set in motion by all those unconscious processes. It really leaves us with this huge, fundamental question. When it comes to our own choices and actions, are we really in the driver's seat? Or is our conscious self just the passenger, along for the ride, watching a movie that's being produced and directed by the secret, hidden workings of our own brain?